This is CBC Vancouver News.
I saw like flashes of red.
Smoke comes to our face and we just take our life and run.
A massive fire forces 100 people from their homes in Coquitlam. Plus,
I kept bringing this to various members of caucus and I was really met with nothing.
Selena Robinson stands by her claims of anti-Semitism within the NDP caucus, while the Premier disagrees.
Selena's voice was an important one in our caucus.
And
to have somebody come and tear them out of the ground, and essentially say they're going in the trash.
A former pet cemetery in Surrey could be dug up for new houses. Can the project be stopped? Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. About 100 people are wondering if or when they can go back home after a huge fire ripped through their apartment building in Coquitlam last night. As Joel Ballard shows us, firefighters say flames were climbing from floor to floor.
It was a long, cold, challenging night for residents and firefighters alike. Emergency services were called to this apartment complex around 1:45 in the morning. Many of the residents awakened by the sound of the fire alarm.
I saw like flashes of red in the window, so I went to check it out, and it was a massive fire going on.
68 firefighters from Coquitlam, Poco, Port Moody, and Burnaby responded. When they arrived, firefighters say flames and smoke were billowing from the back of the building, where 4 units were fully engulfed.
We had basically ground level to 4th floor flames. It was quite a sight in the back end there.
Some residents were trapped on the balcony and had to be rescued by a ladder. The 2nd floor collapsed in one area and a firefighter fell through. He sustained a minor injury to his ankle. He was taken to hospital and later released. Some residents were treated for smoke inhalation. Many were forced to evacuate their homes in the cold of winter, like Max Moseni, who lives next door to the units that caught fire.
Last night was terrible. It's just like smoke comes to our face and we just take our life and run. And because we are afraid it comes to our home too.
There's frustration today. Moseni hasn't been able to return to his unit, where his family had to leave their 2 kittens. The family's medication is still inside too. I spoke with some residents on the other side of the building who say they were far enough away that they didn't need to evacuate. Meanwhile, Coquitlam Fire says about 100 people were displaced.
Originally, I called a couple of transit buses, and they came in and kept everyone warm, so it was cold last night.
Fox says emergency support services and the city of Coquitlam have set up a reception area, providing food and temporary shelter support for anyone who can't return home. Fire investigators are on scene, and city staff and engineers are working to determine whether it's safe to return. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Coquitlam.
It was a final resting place for beloved pets, but a proposed development in Surrey could see a former pet cemetery dug up for new housing. And as Liam Britton reports, those against that proposal may not have the law on their side.
Skipper, Sailor, Piggy, Fido, Brandy, Sheba, and perhaps hundreds more. They've been resting for decades at a former pet cemetery in Newton. But for how much longer is the question Christian Schumacher is asking.
To have somebody come and tear them out of the ground, and essentially say they're going in the trash.
The cemetery is proposed for redevelopment into 3 houses. Schumacher says it's wrong to dig up a place where pets were buried for 40 years.
When one passes away, people mourn, I can't say just like a human, but they still mourn. It's still a part of your life that's gone.
David Corns has spent the last few years voluntarily cleaning up the land. It's been badly overgrown after the cemetery closed down in 1992. He explains that he's a Celtic revivalist.
Celtic Druidism is having respect and respecting nature and all the animals and things like that. And that's one of my major motivations.
Over 2,000 people have signed Schumacher's petition to stop the proposed redevelopment. And while they may have plenty of emotion and treasured memories, and not to mention the signatures of 2,000 people on a petition on their side, The law may not be. You see, cemeteries for human burial are quite heavily regulated and protected, but pet cemeteries, not really at all.
The sad reality is that there aren't really any legal protections for pet cemeteries in British Columbia.
Rebecca Breder is a lawyer specializing in animal law.
Unless there is something that legally ties a pet cemetery to the land, the next developer or property owner can just dig up the cemetery and do what they like with the remains.
The city, in a statement, says the project conforms to zoning, and it will only need staff's okay, not council's.
People have buried their beloved pets there with the expectation they're staying there, that that's their forever home.
Still, one councillor says she's concerned about it.
And if people have concerns about this, they should write into the planning department at the City of Surrey and express their concerns. Quite frankly, I would like to see this area made into a neighborhood park.
Turnberry Development says they own the land for about 30 years and have now sold it to a home builder. It says 3 people have claimed their pets' headstones for removal, and those requests have been accommodated. Breder and Schumacher say there should be rules protecting pet cemeteries from redevelopment. Staff say the houses could be approved in months. Liam Britton, CBC News, Surrey.
The fallout over the resignation of NDP MLA Selena Robinson is surging through the legislature. She's left the NDP caucus to sit as an independent, accusing her former party of tolerating anti-Semitism within its ranks. Last month, Robinson resigned from cabinet after saying modern Israel was founded on a, quote, crappy piece of land with nothing on it. She spoke with our Michelle Elliott on BC Today.
When we're seeing anti-Semitism, just appearing in civil society, regular protests, hearing from people in the Jewish community that they were afraid, that Holocaust survivors were saying it's happening again. I kept bringing this to various members of caucus, and I was really met with nothing.
The Premier says he and his caucus are feeling hurt and sad about Robinson's resignation. David Eby says he wonders whether he could have stepped in and addressed some of her concerns.
I had a meeting with her just a few hours before she resigned from our caucus. I was checking in with her. How are you doing? How's your relationship with colleagues? How's the community feeling? How's your work going with the Muslim community? And she didn't feel safe raising these issues with me. And so for me, that's a message that I need to examine how I work with our team, because Selena's voice was an important one in our caucus. She had an experience of the October 7th attacks that nobody else in our caucus had.
BC United leader Kevin Falcon, meanwhile, calls Eby's attitude to Robinson patronizing.
The Premier's saying she's hurting and carrying a lot of pain. This is a common trope against women, of course, because the Premier and the House Leader are implying that she's too emotional and hopefully she'll go find some peace, as opposed to responding to the accusations and allegations that she had made against their government.
BC United MLA Michael Lee, meanwhile, describes Selena Robinson as the only ally the Jewish community can count on in the legislature. Outgoing Environment Minister George Haymon, who is also Jewish, disputes that. He says while he recognizes Robinson's own experience, he doesn't share her belief the NDP government is tolerating anti-Semitism within its ranks.
My experience is that our caucus and our cabinet is deeply committed to fighting anti-Semitism, to opposing hatred, and I have found them to be personally supportive of me on an ongoing basis at any time since October, when they have felt that I might be feeling strong emotions about what is going on.
Both Robinson and Haymon have said they won't be running for re-election. To other news now, tens of thousands of British Columbians are being caught up in a doctor's dispute. As the CBC's Nicole Aud reports, at stake is access to vision-preserving treatment.
Christina Watts is still able to draw and paint, crucial for the Prince George artist and art teacher. But a recent diagnosis of a life-altering retinal disease has put that at risk.
I have like a big round circle. It was a gray mass in the center of my eye, and all I could see was the peripheral.
To preserve her sight, Watts needs monthly eye injections. She's one of more than 20,000 British Columbians in the Provincial Retinal Diseases Treatment Program.
Since I've been getting the eye injections, it's kind of cleared the gray mass so that I can see color.
In February, Watts and other patients got a worrying letter from their retinal specialist. It says due to a cut in provincial compensation, the program will be ending at the end of March. Watts says paying for the treatment out of pocket would cost her hundreds or even thousands of dollars each visit.
Their thoughts, because I have kids, right? So where does that money go to? Well, I would rather just give up my eye and pay for my kids, post-secondary education.
The province told CBC News that the changes are coming about at the request of the BC Society of Eye Physicians and Surgeons. But the Association of BC Retinal Specialists is suing that organization, alleging the proposed fee changes are unfair. The retinal specialists allege the society is trying to punish a small group of professionals for earning too much from the retinal disease treatment program. In a statement to CBC, the Society of Eye Physicians and Surgeons deny those allegations and say they will be responding through the court process. The conflict also has Health Minister Adrian Dix weighing in.
Regardless of what happens, people will continue to get service. They'll continue to get service for free. We're, of course, determined and concerned that letters were sent out that suggested otherwise.
Despite the reassurance, Watts questions how patients like her will get their injections.
I don't think it is fair that we're stuck in the middle of this as a patient. I mean, we're in for vital care, and this, squabbling is not helping anything.
It leaves people in limbo, waiting to see what comes. Nicole Aud, CBC News, Prince George.
50 years ago, the Orpheum Theatre was saved. We're going to take you back in time and backstage right after this. And thanks to you for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Tensions between the Heiltsuk First Nation and Vancouver police continue more than 4 years after VPD officers handcuffed a Heiltsuk man and his granddaughter outside a bank in Vancouver. We heard from the nation's chief earlier today.
The official apology for this incident was supposed to take place in Bella Bella back in 2022. Is that right?
That's right, October 2022.
And what happened?
They didn't show up. And, so the ceremony didn't happen. It's a ceremony of the Heiltsuk Nation, and it's also one that other people can't stand in for other people, like the police board. Being here, it does involve the people that were involved in the incident. So that ceremony, didn't happen.
When you say didn't happen, I mean, the police board did head up to Bella Bella. Is that right? There were representatives from Vancouver Police there.
That's right. There were representatives here, but the apology ceremony didn't happen.
And that's because the officers who were actually involved, the officers who detained and handcuffed Maxwell Johnson and his granddaughter, they were not there.
That's right. Yeah, they were not here. They didn't come up to the community, and so the ceremony was not able to take place.
And if you had, for instance, senior officers or the chair of the police board or members of the police board, that's not good enough for you.
No, I mean it's part of our Indigenous laws and our traditional customs and our practices. It's a ceremony that involves the people that were involved in, and in this case, an incident. Mm-hmm. And it's not one where you can appoint someone to, stand in your place. It involves the people that were involved.
And so what kind of communication did you have with the police board after that, what was supposed to be that ceremony fell apart?
So there hasn't been any communication, so we don't know what their best efforts have been to compel, the officers to take part in the ceremony. We, don't know, it's been, virtually nothing, so, yeah. And that's really frustrating.
And did you ever get any kind of explanation as to why the officers weren't there?
No, we didn't. Yeah.
And so we don't know whether it's the officers themselves who don't want to attend or whether it's the VPD that doesn't want the officers to attend.
That's right.
It is Throwback Thursday. The Orpheum Theatre is a jewel in Vancouver's entertainment crown. It started life as a vaudeville and cinema, but in 1974 faced a destructive fate. The plan was to gut the place and put in a 13-screen movie theatre. The city, though, had another idea: renovate, rebuild, and open it up as a concert hall. In 1977, it was saved. And back then, we spoke with musicians and entertainers about what made the Orpheum so good.
But the beautiful sounds that will come from the stage will, I think, be a revelation to all Vancouverites.
Well, I believe this one is one of the best halls in the world.
What's your favorite hall? I think I like the one in Vienna, but it couldn't be duplicated today. If it's a 10, what is this on a scale of 1 to 10? 9.9. I really like this hall.
You know, the Orpheum is the most beautiful theater in Canada. Bing Crosby told me that. Bob Hope. There's so many people who told me the very same story, that they'd never even been in such a more beautiful theater than the Orpheum.
So half a century later, let's take another look inside. Today, Caroline Chan discovers some secrets.
Hello and welcome to Vancouver's glorious Orpheum Theatre, the fourth theatre in the city to bear the name Orpheum. Hi, I'm Bill Alman. I'm the president of the BC Entertainment Hall of Fame. We're in the Granville Street entrance of this grand old palace built in 1927. Now, the illusion here is that while the theatre looks huge and grand and majestic, there's only 25 feet of it built on Granville Street. And that's this entrance, which was enhanced with mirrors and lights and a high ceiling. So you felt like you were coming into the theater with thousands of people. Most of the theater is built back on Seymour Street, almost 3,000 seats, because Seymour Street was cheaper and the taxes on Seymour Street were cheaper.
And the Orpheum's celebrating a big anniversary because 50 years ago, something big happened.
That's correct. 50 years ago, famous players who by then owned the property, and they were a movie distribution and exhibition chain. Famous players had decided that the economics of movie-going had changed. Theaters were no longer pulling in enough people to justify a single screen for almost 3,000 people. So they announced quite publicly that they were either going to turn the theater into a multiplex, so there'd have been 8 screens here showing the latest Star Wars movie, or else they were going to flatten it all together. At that point, the citizenry of Vancouver stepped up and said, absolutely not, this is our theater, our gem. And eventually the city of Vancouver said, okay, that's it, we'll buy the property. I have visions of them walking in on purchase day in 1974, looking, going around, wow, we bought a theater, and it's a wreck. So they undertook a huge restoration of this entire building. The reason it's a gem now is because the city had the foresight to go ahead and really do a proper restoration. Good to see you. This is Tom Carter, board member of the BC Entertainment Hall of Fame and magnificent artist.
Okay, so the 1927 Wurlitzer, as Bill was saying, it's the last Wurlitzer that's in its original theater in all of Canada. So let's just say that we were going to accompany a silent film, Bill, and there would be, say, a girl in her garden, like. And then, but something evil is brewing.
So when the Orpheum was originally built in 1927, many of the components were put together off-site, were carved off-site, like these seemingly and definitely solid stone columns, the handrails, the balustrades. These were carved from sandstone, probably quarried on Gabriel Island, on a lot a couple of blocks away from here, and brought to the Orpheum by horse and buggy, because that's how you move things in those days. The Orpheum took about a year to complete. You couldn't put up a garage in the city of Vancouver now, just for the paperwork, in under a year. But these are nice and solid. As I've explained, the Orpheum architecture is fantastic, but it's a set. They're done by masterful craftsmen and architectural geniuses who knew how to build a great theater set. So here we are in the lower balcony of the Orpheum Theatre. And as you look around, you see screens that evoke Moorish and Baroque architecture. You see panels that are curved. You see a dome that is painted with the most beautiful mural and you see a great grand chandelier that looks exactly like what they dropped on people in Phantom of the Opera. We don't drop this on anybody. It's too expensive. It's all Czech crystal. Looking up at the dome, which looks like a classic mural, probably done in the 20s. Is that what it looks like? Yeah, it was painted in 1974. So they got Tony Heinsbergen, who I think was in his 80s at that point, to consult on how to properly redecorate the entire room. And then Heinsbergen said, listen, that dome was always just gray. I really wanted to do a proper mural up there. Would you let me? And Merrick said, sure, we will. So Heinsbergen, I tell my audiences he lay on his back for 6 months, like the Sistine Chapel. He did not. He painted, I think it's 20 different canvas pieces in his studio in Los Angeles. They were affixed to the dome here. That sense of grandeur comes through, and the sense of history. This is by no means a museum. This is a living, working theater, and it's a place where you come to feel good. This is the roof above the theater seating area, above the house, as we call it. Watch this.
I can see the seats below.
That's right. We're standing right over top of the seating area. And what you see, this curved thing, is that beautifully ornate painted dome that you saw from the seating area below. And everything is suspended by wires. The Orpheum, yes, is a glorious, grand piece of architecture. It's a set. That dome might be an inch thick with a little bit of canvas applied to it as well.
What is the magic of?
It's an emotional release for the audience. It's a connection, and that at the end of the day is the magic. It's that connection between artist, whether they're on celluloid or on stage, and audience that really does it for me.
From one glorious sight to another, this was the Cypress Mountain Eagle Chair this afternoon. Another winter hit for the South Coast is coming. Darius will have your BC-wide forecast right after this.
Landscapes came about pretty naturally. I just started painting them, enjoying them. But the reaction I was getting from people when they were looking at them, they were telling me that it was very soothing. My sister, her name was Anna Howard. She was my best friend. And we lost Anna to depression 7 years ago. And she was a huge impact in how my work changed after the loss of Anna. I realized so many of us, and I knew before we lost her, that so many people are dealing with so much behind closed doors. And I wanted everything that I do to be somehow trying to quietly reach those people who need a little bit of love or need a little bit of calming in their life. I have quietly been doing things for so many years to try and let people realize what it is that I want to offer, and the fact that they came to me for something that they thought would be healing in a space. I was like, oh my gosh, it's exactly what I would want. It was my dream. Oh, she would have loved it. I mean, I think she does love it. I think she kind of has been pushing me along the way. Yeah, she was one of my biggest supporters, so she would have thought that it was so perfect. We can help people in ways that we don't actually have to physically be with them. So this is my little way of cheering people on.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Calling all entrepreneurs, Dragon's Den auditions are back. On March 6th, attend a special entrepreneurial workshop at the Okanagan Regional Library, Kelowna branch. The open auditions are on March 7th at the Kelowna Innovation Centre, and Vancouver auditions are on March 9th and 10th at the CBC Broadcast Centre. For more information and to register, visit cbc.ca/dragonsden.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Time for our BC-wide weather forecast with science and climate specialist Darius Madavi. And that map is painted with all sorts of warnings.
Yes, we've got a lot of activity coming in the next 72 hours or so. Lots of precipitation coming in, temperatures coming up, which is maybe good news if you've been feeling a little bit chilly, because we're just coming back up to around seasonal, still a little bit below. Freezing levels come up, which means that some of that precipitation may fall as rain at some of the mountains, but freezing levels come back down as we get into the weekend. So even if you start to see some rain on the mountains, don't panic just yet. But you're right, Dan, we've got rainfall warnings for parts of the coast and some strong winds there as well. Winter storm warning for inland parts of the north coast. We have a snowfall warning and then a special weather statement for parts of the lower mainland and up the sea to sky. So lots of activity happening. If we take a look, you can see that system continue to roll in over the next while. We see parts of it break into the interior and just lots of moisture feeding in, especially to those western and northern parts of Vancouver Island, as well as the north coast. Some of it making its way down to us, but we also get some breaks in there. Expect to see the rain come on and off over the next few days. Some of those breaks coming overnight, though, so you may not really notice. And then we continue to see some snow break into parts of the interior as well. So activity across the board. No matter where you are in BC, you get to experience it. Now, if we take a look, lots of snow breaking into some places experiencing some rain as well. Places like parts of the valley and the Okanagan Valley and Elk Valley, places like that may see some rain in addition to the snow, as well as here on the south coast. Places like Whistler and Squamish will get a decent covering of snow, but for the most part, we're seeing that at those higher elevations, and otherwise we're seeing lots of rain, in some cases over 100 millimeters of rain coming down in around 48 to 72 hours. So a lot of it coming down in those big bursts. Now, if we take a look, also to watch out for are those winds. We're going to continue to see those over the next while. Some very strong winds, particularly tonight and into tomorrow afternoon, probably peaking around there and then calming down as we get into the weekend. If we take a look at our conditions across the province, lots of moisture on the coast as you'd expect, but also in some parts of the interior, just really breaking in there and then calming down again. And if we zoom into Vancouver, you can see lots of rain coming, some snow at those higher elevations, and then that does come down to snow tonight, even in places like the Tri-Cities, North Vancouver, getting wiped out by rain as those conditions or those temperatures rise into tomorrow. Maybe some snow in the Alpine and the local mountains tomorrow, but again, that snow should be coming back as we get into the weekend. But really, Dan, it's just a very wet forecast ahead.
Okay, Darius, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And that is your late news for Thursday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Have a good night.